Welcome, this is the third part of ASP.NET MVC series. This is database first approach, and if you are new to these videos and you have not watched my previous videos of this series, so please watch part 1 and 2 before proceeding. So we are starting with the example that we were working on in the previous video, so please watch previous video before proceeding. So in this video we will try to learn how can we connect to our database, and how can we get our data from database. So first of all, we have to install entity framework and all the things that need to be done before we connect to our database. So let's do that. So let's flip to Visual Studio. Entity framework is must to install because we are gonna use DB context class. In a bit I will tell you what is the purpose of adding this entity framework. So let me go to tools, and inside that new get package manager, and manage new get packages for solution. Guys, if my speed is slow, I'm speaking slow, you can watch my video at 1.25 or 1.5x speed so that you may be comfortable. So here I should go online and in browse tab, and I should search for entity framework. So it's not showing up here. Sorry, entity. This is entity framework. The significance of this library can be identified by this is downloaded by 59.8 million people. Okay, so we want to add this in our project, and then we hit install button over here. The interface of your Visual Studio may be a bit different based on your Visual Studio version. So whatever the version you are using of Visual Studio, you should install entity framework like so. And when you have done, just click OK and accept. This will add all the references to the entity framework libraries. Just click yes to all, and you may see here the entity framework is successfully installed, and just hit yes. And now you can see you have the option to uninstall. That means it is installed in your project, and you can see the assembly references has been added successfully. So let's go back to our controller. So in previous video we were working on this demo action method, and here we were creating a student object, and inside that we were populating these values. We were hard coding these values, but in this video we will populate this object from our database table. And that is let me say that we want student 1 detail to be fetched to this student object. So definitely we have to do a lot of changes for that. So before that, before we connect to database, we have to follow some steps that have been mentioned here. We have to install entity framework. Next we have to create a DB context class. So we have to create a class. This is just for one time purpose only, one time, and this connection string is also for one time purpose only, and this is also we do it in our project just for the one time. Okay, we just do it for one time, and we do not repeat these things for whenever we want to create our database or we want to connect to our database. This is just for the first time when you create your project, and in your project you want to communicate to your database. So don't worry, these steps will not be repeated again and again. So this is just for one time only. So let's do it. So in models folder, just add a class which should represent your DB context class. So let me add a class, and the class name can be anything, but because it is a context class, that is responsible for establishing a connection between your model class and your database table. So we usually name it as context class or something like that. So let me name it as student context. Hit enter, and this class must inherit from DB context class. Look at that, and D is capital and C is capital. Now this class is present in system.data.entity namespace. Now here is the point that why we installed entity framework, because this namespace is present inside that library. So that is the reason we had the first step to install entity framework, because if we do not install entity framework, we cannot inherit this class from this built-in DB context class. So that is the reason we have installed entity framework to our project. So let me add this namespace, and we have added this namespace over here, and now you can see the error is gone. And the next thing is that when you have made this DB context class or student context class, to convey our attention that we want to map this student class to our database table, we have to define a property over here which should look like something like this: public DB set student, that is our student class, and the property name should be plural. If the class name is student, we name it as students. If the class name is course, we name it as courses. If class name is teacher, we name the property as teachers over here. So get set, and that's it. Tomorrow if I add another class, like I add here the course class, and I want that course class to be mapped to our course table in our database table. So all we need to do is to add just one property like this, just copy paste it, and you will just change here the class name as course, because for now we don't have any class name course, so it will throw an error, and we will just do something like this. Okay, so for now let me comment it. We are not gonna add this property because we do not have that course class over here, but in future we will do it. Okay, and that is the second step to do. First was to install entity framework, and second was to add DB context class, and third is to add the connection string in web.config file. I go to web.config file. I have already added this connection string, some incomplete connection string over here. Where is that? Let me check it. We have, where is that? Okay, we have added this connection string over here, and in here you can write this connections string like this over under system.web tab. This is the connection strings XML here, and we just add name is equal to, this is important, the name of the connection string must match with the DB context class name. So let me copy that. The connection string name must be same as your DB context class name. This is how MVC knows that how to connect to the database table of a specific server. So connection string is equal to data source is equal to, here you put your server name, but if I put dot, it will automatically consider the local server, the local SQL server. And initial catalog is equal to the database name that you are using. Let me call my database name as student DB. So it will look for student database inside your local server, that is your SQL server, and integrated security is SSAI, that is Windows authentication, and we are using system.data.sql client as our client. So that's it. Now we have to create a database named as student database in our database in our SQL server. But before that, let me complete all the steps. Prepare action method. So let me prepare the action method inside our demo controller. Now we do not need to populate this student object with hard-coded data. We want to fetch this data from our database table. So because we have not added any database something like that, let me write the code, and then when the error will be shown, we will remove the error and add our database table over here. So let me go ahead and write a link query code or entity framework code to communicate to our database. First of all, we have to create an object of this student context class, student context. Let me name it as DB, and new student context. I have named it as DB because this object can fetch all the tables and all the columns inside those tables. So let me use this object. Let me write db dot students dot, we want to fetch all the student detail, so we want to fetch a specific student detail. So for that we should we have to accept some kind of ID over here. So ID must be passed into this action method. So I am getting db.students.single student. Lambda expression is something like this, x such that x dot ID is equal to whatever ID we are passing to this action method. So because this line of code is returning single student detail, so we should we can save this to our student object. So that's it. Now again we are passing this object to the view, and view is already prepared, so we do not need to rewrite the code for our view because view is already prepared. So let me hit Ctrl F5. Definitely we will have some kind of error because in our SQL Server we do not have any database named as student DB, and inside that we should have a student table. So let it run. and let's check what's going on. So look at that, guys. It needs some ID because this is a meaningful error, because our demo action method now accept some ID to complete the URL. I mean to say that this action method now accepts ID. So let me pass some integer value here. Let me pass 1. Now the error message will be updated, and let's see what's gonna happen. It's looking for a student table inside our SQL Server, inside student DB, and we know that there is no student database in our SQL Server. So let's see what's gonna happen, and I just want to make you people understand that if there is no database inside your SQL Server, this will throw an error. And I want to make these things clear to to all the students who are beginner, who are learning it from scratch. So if you are an expert and you have some kind of experience on ASP.NET MVC, you can skip a bit of my video. And now you can see when it's gonna talk to our database, it's throwing the errors. The system cannot find the file specified, and this is meaningful, by the way. And now let's quickly go to our SQL Server, and let me add a new database, and this database name must match with whatever you are passing the database name over here. So let me copy that, and let me go back to my SQL Server, and let's create a database named as studentdb over there. So let me name this database as studentdb, and let me hit OK, and this will add a database named as studentdb. Let's quickly add 2 tables. First table should be the student table, and the second table should be the course table, and later on we will discuss the significance of the course table. So let me add a column named ID. It must be of type int. Remember, guys, these column names and these data type names must match with your model class name. If your student has got these properties, you have to reflect all of them inside your database table. So first property is of type int, and its name is ID. You should declare a column over here that should be ID, and it must be of type int, and it is a primary key. To make it primary key, I did something like this, and I want to auto increment this primary key. So for that, let me make the identity specification as yes, and the next column is name, then gender, then mobile, and all of them are string type. So name varchar, gender varchar, and the last is mobile, and this is also of type string, and here we will declare it as a varchar. And now hit Ctrl S and name this table as student table, and let me hit OK. Now this table is added, but it's you can see over here. Now let me quickly add another table of for courses, and in future we will reuse it, and I will explain the reason why I am adding in here this table. So ID varchar, and it must be primary key, and it should be auto incremented. So it must be of type int. So now we can make it auto incremented, and course should have the course name, and it must also be of type string. And let me save it as course table, and let me add another property over here of type int, and this should be the course ID of the student, which course he is learning. So let's suppose that at one time a student can okay, let me change this table name to department. Let me, because table is not showing up here, let me refresh my table, and let me change this name to department, and let me save it. And now I want every student to give his department ID whenever he is being registered. So department ID as DID, and it must be of type int, because we are gonna map it to this column ID. So let me save this student class student table, and let me quickly add a foreign key. If you know how to establish primary foreign keys and you know how to create database tables, you can skip my video a little. Now I want this department ID to be mapped to this DID, and hit OK and OK. Now I click save, and database diagram is saved, and now this primary foreign key relationship has been established. But one thing is very important. We have added this DID over here. We should add this DID in our student class as well. So let me copy that, and let me add it as DID department ID. So this is how we established primary key foreign key relationship. But for now we are just concerned with our student table. But before we fetch any data, let me populate some departments over here, and then we will add some students inside the student tab, because ID is auto incremented, it is hidden. Let me add here CS department, and mechanical department, and civil department, and management MS department. So management sciences department. Let me add some students over here. Let me add Yasir, male, mobile number, and I want to go to CS department, so I will pass ID 1 over here, and and this person want to go to ME department, so pass 2 over here. Let me now refresh this URL and let's see what's gonna happen. It's refreshing. Look at that, guys, it's again showing the same error. Let me run this project as in debug mode, and let me again check whether what kind of exception it's gonna throw, so that we can understand what's the problem behind the scene. So it's running again. Guys, if you are tired up, you can have some rest, and you should refresh, and when you are okay, you should come back and start from here. So let's go to our student. What was the controller name? Sorry, the controller name is student controller. So let me hit back to student /demo/ let me pass ID as 1. Let's see what's happening behind the scene. So let's see whether it's working or not. So let's check what is the exception over here, so that we can understand. A network related instance specific error occurred while establishing a connection to SQL Server. The server was not found or was not accessible. Verify that the instance name is correct and that SQL Server is configured to allow remote connections. Provider name pipes, provider error 40. So in this kind of error, we can recheck our connection string, and we should try adding our complete SQL Server name, because here we are adding just dot to reference to our local server, but for some reason it might not work, and if it's not working in your case as well, so what you need to do, you should go to your SQL Server, you just disconnect it, and when you disconnect your SQL Server and you try to connect it again, you will find this server name over here. So just copy this server name and just paste it over here. Instead of dot, we are going to pass the fully qualified name of our SQL Server. And now let me rerun the project and let's check whether it's working or not. So if it's not working, again we will continue finding the error problem and we will fix it in this video. So we will learn how to fix such kind of problems if they are coming, so that we may learn how to fix the bugs in our project. So let me go to student controller and demo, and let me pass ID as 1. Let's see whether it's working or not. So look at that, guys, it's saying that sequence contains no elements. That means it's connected to our database, but it's saying that this kind of query is not working because the sequence has got no elements. At ID 1 there is no student. But why is that? Because we have already added a student at ID 1. So let me check what can be the problem. Our table name is student table and our class name is student class. It must work, but why is that happening to us? Let's check it. db.students.single x such that x.id is equal to whatever id we are passing over here. This must work guys, but it's not working for a while. Student database, and inside we have this we have here students table as well. So why is that? We have two tables over here. In student table we have got this record, but this table is also being showing up here, and this table is auto generated by MVC. But to convey our attention that we created this table and we want to use this table, this is because, guys, if your property name over here is students, it will look for students table or something like that. But to convey our attention that we want to the database table name is student table, we just declare a table attribute over here, and we pass the table name here as student. We do not want to use students table, but we want to use student table. So to resolve this namespace, just click over here and just add this namespace. Let me rerun the project, and now we have conveyed our attention that we want to use this table information. So let me quickly go to student demo/1. So this must work now. It's again not working. Why is that? The model baking the student context has changed since the database was created. Considered using code first migration to update the database. So first of all we should delete this auto generated table. So let me delete it. I have deleted this, and we want to reuse this database, and let me refresh it. And now we have got this student table, and this student table has got these two records. So let me again check whether it's working or not. Again it's saying that there is some kind of error, that the model baking student context has changed. The database was considered using. So let me check what can be. Okay, let's try running project in debug mode, and let's again check what's going on. It must throw this kind of error because all the things are correct to best of our knowledge. So let's see whether it's throwing that error again or not. It must work now. So it's throwing some error. The model baking the student context has changed since the database was created. Consider using code first migrations to update the database, and something like that. So let's see what can we do. Let me Google it, guys. For some reason it's mixing the things, like it is considering our project as code first approach. So let's try something else. Let me go to SQL Server, and let me script this table to as drop and recreate, and let me execute this query. So it's taking a bit of time. It's dropping and recreating this database again. It's executing. It's taking too much time. Let's try using create to statement. Create to new query window, and let's delete this database altogether, close existing connections, and the database will be, what is the ultra-failed database? Okay, let me refresh it. So it's not deleted. Why is that? Let me remove it. Okay, let me open up a new query window. Where is that? Something is running somewhere. Database student because it is currently in use. Let me close it. Where it is being used. SQL. Let me close the connection and let's try again. Now it's deleted successfully. Now let's execute this query and let's try to recreate our database. Connection is broken, recovery is not possible, declined or something like what's happening. Okay, let's create a database table. Let's create new database as student database. Let's quickly let me add the table here, and I'm pausing the video and skipping some of the logic here because we have already learned how to add a table. Guys, again I have added this table and I have added this one row in this student table, and let's move to our Visual Studio and let me run the project and let's see whether it's working or not. So again I am going to student controller demo and I am passing as ID1, and definitely we are getting the data from our database. And if I pass ID2, because at ID2 I have no data in our database table, so it will throw that there is no sequence of the element which are matching with ID2. So if I change it back to 1, then it's showing the data, and that's how we can connect to our database. This tutorial has got some error, but that are also the part of learning. So when we had added another table and we had connected that, we had here students table by default. That was the reason that it was MVC was considering it as code first approach, but don't worry, I explain a video in a bit in a bit of time. So first of all, what we did, we just added entity framework, then we added this context class over here, and this context class name must match with this connection string name over here. and then we got the server name error. We just passed the actual complete server name over here instead of dot that was representing our local server. And for some reason, if it's not working, you should pass the fully qualified name of your SQL server, and then you pass the your database name that you are creating over here, student database. And after that you are telling that it is using the Windows authentication, and then you are coming back to your student your demo action method, and we have commented these hard-coded values. Now we want to communicate to our database. So whenever you want to communicate to database, you have to make this student context class object. Why is that? Because we have created this class. If I go to its definition, we have created this class for the purpose to connect to our database. So the main purpose of this class is to connect or to communicate, to provide the communication facility to our database. Now what database it will connect? Again, you should go to connection string, and from there you can see that what kind of server it will connect to and what is the database to which it is gonna connect. And we are just passing that database name over here as initial catalog as student database. So this is how it is connected to our database table, and we are fetching that data from there. And then again we are using this object, and we know that whenever we make object of some class, we can access its public member function or its properties or its variables. So we have got this students variable over here, property over here, and that property is being retrieved over here by using db dot students. And this is the link helper method, which is providing us the functionality to get the single value, and this x represents that single value. And if you just again write it here dot, you will see that it is representing all the column. I mean to say, the IntelliSense is giving you full control whether you are matching with you want to match with the department ID, or you want to match with ID, want to match with mobile number, name, gender, and anything else. But here our intention is to match the ID, match the ID of student table with this ID which the user is passing as parameter over here. So at 1 we have Yasir, and if I quickly add another record over here to prove that, if I write it Bilal male and any number over here, and I pass the department ID as 2, and I saved it. Now we have data at ID 2, so let me put here 2, and you can see that we have got the respective data. So this is how we can connect to our database, and we can prepare our view to display the details of a single employee. So in our next video we want something like this. We want to make the link of every employee name, and we want to proceed like that. So this was a somewhat error prone tutorial, but we did also learn how to handle the errors on the fly. If we do not know what's gonna happen, we just think of it, and we just do our efforts, and we resolve the error. So this was some kind of you may say that salty tutorial, because this was salty because it has got some errors. So just to make you people laugh in the end, I just added this line of to make some kind of fun of this stuff. So that's it for today, guys. Hope you are working with the hope you are following along, and stay tuned. See you in the next video. Till then, have a great time.